I sometimes wonder now with everything that's going on, will that ever exist again?
Cattle Call Podcast. I'm coming in hot with a great new guest. I'm always excited. I will say every time I get a nail down a guest for my next podcast, I always get more excited for this guest than I did the last one, and it's always that way. And I've loved every guest I have on, but I've been real excited for this one right here. Do you want to introduce yourself, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
Right.
You're already on a nice
I'm already.
road.
That means a lot coming from you too. So I got my buddy Josh Vinson.
Yes,
you go by Josh. Go by Joshua.
Either or.
All right. You're on my phone as Joshua Vinson, but I've always
Okay.
called you Josh.
That sounds
What's my
good.
buddy Josh? Josh Vinson,
Yes, sir.
the man who does it all.
I try.
Man, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Man, I'm just happy to be here.
Me too.
So
Yeah.
we already had a great discussion that should have been recorded. Josh, tell us about yourself.
Let's see. Isaac and I'll tell a little bit about us.
Yeah.
We both went to the University of Memphis together a few years back. I want to say it was 2018-ish, somewhere in there. We took a couple of classes together. Definitely hit it off. I was like, bro,
Yeah.
you're just so cool. Had a great time. Through the years, I've covered a lot of NBA games, NFL games. Had an apprenticeship with Fox Sports. Did a lot with them. At one point in time, I was doing some work with Derrick Rose camp up in Chicago. So I was covering the Bulls and following Derrick Rose around when he was in Chicago. And then more recently, when I graduated college, I was working at a CBS TV station up in Iowa on the Illinois-Iowa border, and was there for about 14 months. So that was a lot of fun to be, not too far from Chicago, about 2 hours west of Chicago. And now I'm here in Memphis working at a local television station, pretty much doing kind of the same thing, little different things here and there. But I'm glad to be back in Memphis.
Yeah,
glad
man.
to be back here in the Mid-South.
Glad to have you back. And you're from Chicago.
Yeah.
So
Chicago.
born and raised?
Yeah, you're going to hear the accent every now and again. I'm going to drop it, every Chicago, So, yeah, I'm from Illinois.
From Illinois. And do you like being back in the South?
Yeah. The weather is much better.
Really?
I can do without the mosquitoes, though. But
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, dude, I feel like the North, except for brutal winters, Chicago's got some pretty cold winters.
For sure.
But overall, man, I always feel like it's always nicer weather when you go to the North, Northeast, or out West.
here, I if you're into the warmer weather, it's good to kind of get away. But I mean, I go back home every other week in Chicago.
Dude, you're
but-
always home, man.
Yeah, I'm always home.
seeing stuff on your Twitter, like another picture of Chicago, which I mean, Chicago is a great city,
It's a
dude. It's
beautiful
the poor
city.
man's New York, but it is a great.
Oh wow!
kidding.
And that's how
I'm
the
kidding.
podcast ended.
Oh
guys.
man, I know, and my mom's family's up there too. So I mean, I've gotten to see Chicago, and it really is a great city.
Oh
It's
yeah, it's
a very
beautiful.
clean city.
Very. I know
got-
you're in New York. You like
Oh,
the
dude,
New York.
I love
yeah.
New York, man.
You should just move there.
I need
You
to.
Yankee,
Yeah, cowboy Yankee.
cowboy Yankee.
Yeah, Chicago's great. Why do you love Chicago the way you do? I know it's home, but
Yeah.
what makes Chicago just Chicago?
It's so hard to be. It's just this feeling. It's like when I get off the airplane and I'm seeing the skyline, I'm seeing all the things that that I know, the different expressways, the roadways, and just the way the city moves. It just does something for me. It just does something to me. It's almost like an addiction, if you will. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It's so weird. It's like I'm infatuated with the city. Most people are from Chicago and they're like, okay, yeah, I'm from Chicago, but it's not like they're infatuated. I'm the person that's on social media that's gonna show you every moment like I'm in Chicago, and people are
and you
like,
do,
you
yeah.
live there. Like, why are you taking the same pictures? Like, you're there. But it's a beautiful city. It has its problems for sure. It's not a perfect place, but in my mind, it's kind of like a paradise, if you will, because though it comes with its issues, Chicago, like you mentioned, beautiful skyline. The
Yeah.
architecture is nice. The
for
lakefront
sure.
is beautiful. When you have a nice 76-degree day along Lake Michigan, running,
Man, yeah.
along the beach. Beautiful, great shopping, great eating. It's just a beautiful place overall. And like you said, it's home. So, it's good to kind of go to the city and you see somebody with a Cubs hat on and you just kind of look at them like,
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
You guys can't see it yet, but he's wearing a White Sox hat.
Exactly.
White Sox hoodie, White Sox. Okay, yeah, talk about that for a second, because I got in a debate with my roommates. They're Cardinals fans. Because my family's always pulled for the White Sox side, and as far as I know, there's a pretty clear divide between Cubs and White Sox fans.
Yeah.
And see, to the rest of the world, everyone's like, no one cares about the White Sox. Cubs are kind of like the Chicago franchise. Then you go into Chicago, and there's a little bit of enmity between the two.
Yeah.
And so White Sox have a lot bigger of a footprint than people realize on the national scale.
They do. And the thing is that, the Cubs have always garnished that national attention. I don't really know how and why. But
Does Wrigley Field have anything to do with it?
I think so. I think,
notoriety.
Exactly. Like when you talk about Chicago and when you look at it on a national level, they always show Wrigley. They always show the North Side. They always show the Cubs and stuff like that. But when you go into Chicago, like you just mentioned, I mean, there are a lot of White Sox fans there, and even like the place I was living in on the Iowa-Illinois border, it was so weird because it was only 2 hours from Chicago, but you couldn't buy any White Sox gear. It was all Cubs. They had Bears, they had Blackhawks, they had Iowa Hawkeyes, obviously, but then they had Cubs. And it was like, people knew I was from Chicago just walking around with a White Sox hat on or a White Sox hoodie because they were like, well, where are you from? Like, you didn't get that nowhere around here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we definitely have a strong fan base, especially when we won the World Series back in 2005.
2005, yeah. I saw the shirt, and with all the jerseys of all the different players on the roster.
Exactly. And from there, we had, the upper hand over the Cubs. But then when the Cubs came back, 3-1 against the Indians in 2016 and ended up winning that, which is very sad. It was a sad day for me.
Oh, you pull for every team.
Oh, I pull for, okay, no.
I forgot you're a big Windians fan. You were for a minute.
Yeah, I'm a big
Francisco
Lindor fan.
Okay, what is he? Hitter, pitcher? What is? I mean, what is
shortstop.
it? He's shortstop.
You don't know the great Francisco Lindor?
Dude, I know about, I don't know, like a couple things. I'm not a big baseball guy, clearly.
Understood. No worries.
I mean, yeah. Anyway,
it's okay.
I mean, was he good? Was he a good hitter, or is he just a good shortstop?
I mean, he's great. Let's just say. I mean, when you think about great players that play for the Cleveland Indians, you're going to put Francisco Lindor name in the top 3. I don't know who the other 2 are because I'm not an Indians fan, but yeah. But no.
So you weren't happy that the Cubs was it 109 years?
Yeah, it was over 100 some years.
108, 109. You weren't happy?
I wasn't necessarily like mad that they won, but it was something to see over 5 million people come downtown Chicago.
Yeah.
And celebrate, the Cubs' victory. And it was just crazy. I remember flying into Chicago Midway, which sits on the south side of the city.
You don't ever go to O'Hare?
Yeah. O'Hare's my airport. Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Make sure you're not a Midway guy, dude. We love O'Hare, man.
I mean, we love O'Hare. I mean, sometimes you do Midway because it's closer to where I live, but I'm okay with O'Hare. But I flew into Midway, and this guy was riding down 55th Street in Costner with a Cubs flag, and I was like, "No, wait a minute, that's just disrespectful."
Because that's all White Sox side of the city.
That's White Sox City. Come on, how do you do that?
So how far is the White Sox stadium from like where you're from?
Okay, so I live in the south suburbs of Chicago, so I'm about 30 miles from downtown Chicago. So the White Sox stadium would probably be about 14 to 15 miles from my south suburbs.
Okay,
Matson, Illinois area. Now the Cubs stadium is again on the north side, so it's probably a little more like maybe 35 to 45 miles north of where I'm from. But if, for the people that's from the Chicagoland area or listening and kind of not familiar, where the Bears used to do their training camp down in Bourbonnais, I only stayed 30 minutes away from that. So I was kind of like in that area. Yeah, in the cornfields is what they call it.
The cornfields.
The cornfields.
So how far are you from downtown? 30 minutes?
About 30 minutes, yeah.
You take the L train in?
No. So we have the Metro train.
You have the Metro too?
Yeah,
okay.
So we have the
that's
Metro
what
train.
It all is in northwest suburbs.
Exactly.
We always ride the Metro.
So everybody in the suburbs, we have the Metro. So I would get on what they call the Metro Manic Electric line and take that right into Millennium Station, and that's the station where if you ever watched The Dark Knight Rises, that's where Batman was right around. Yeah. So
Chicago really is a great city, man.
If
we could start getting that crime under control, honestly,
it's a lot to that. Yeah,
what do you think is a big factor of the crime?
I mean, where do you start? I mean, crime is always related, in my opinion, to lack of opportunity and lack of self wealth. If you don't care about yourself or the people that are around you, and if you feel like you don't have a future, then, and if you're also feeling like you're in a survival mode where bills are due, food is needed, you're going to commit crimes. And so you have to kind of look at the big root of that issue. And that's a problem with a lot of crime, Chicago specifically, since we're talking about Chicago. So when you look on the south and west sides of Chicago, it's a completely different world than what the north side of Chicago looks like.
Right.
And so, you wonder why and how. Why is that? And so if you can show these young people that are in school that it's important to get an education and you can become something, you can be great, and you instill that self-confidence in them. You give them opportunities. You know, the parents are already working. If the parents have jobs where they are making good money and the kids don't have to feel like at 15 and 14 they have to go out there and try to steal from other people or sell drugs to make money, then you might have a different outcome on the South and West sides of Chicago. But that's just not the story of the South and West sides of Chicago right now.
Yeah, it's a shame. Well, too, I mean, it's all we're talking in Memphis, too, so it's not like we're acting like crime is unique to Chicago.
Right.
Because, I mean, New York had terrible crime in the 90s, 80s and 90s.
For sure.
And then, I mean, D.C. has bad crime. Memphis has bad crime. I mean, L.A. has bad. I mean, everywhere. I mean, everyone's going to have crime, of course. I mean, one thing, too, like you said, I'm personally, I think it's always tied to poverty.
Yeah,
Which,
sure.
I mean, you know, because then people think, I mean, oh, if you're a certain color, you're going to have a certain, like, loyalty to something, whether it's like a gang. You could look at like South Central LA.
Right.
You're gonna have a lot of like black and Hispanic gangs. But then like you go to the hills of East Tennessee. I mean, that's some of the poorest zip codes. So you have a lot of stuff like meth.
Yeah.
You got a lot of crime, and it could be all white, but high crime rates. When I went to Alaska, they're all natives. And it was cool. This pastor we went fishing with, he was talking about how the town I was in was like the 19th most dangerous city in America.
Yeah.
But he said, but I keep my doors unlocked because all the crime is happening within the homes of these natives because they're all strung out on drugs. They're alcoholics. They're poor. So they have no access to things. They're isolated. They're, alcoholic, drug addicts. And so they're beating their wives and they're like all pedophilia. It's just, so it's like there's all these crimes, but it's always tied to this absence of access, you know?
And that's the thing. So when you have that access to access, right, then that's when you can go out there and do a lot of great things. But when you don't have that access to, like you say, great health care, great mental health care, you know, access to better jobs and careers, you know, that kind of a thing. When you don't have that type of access and every day or every week you're getting the bills that's coming in and they're not stopping, but the money isn't equaling up to what it needs to, you're going to have issues. And so a lot of times it's kind of like, you know, how do we fix those issues? And it kind of, you know, not to get off topic, but it also kind of remind me of like, you know, when people talk about like policing, right? And you just mentioned like there in Alaska where you have all these domestic violence situations, this, that, and the other. When people talk about like that term, you hear that weird term, defunding the police, and people get all scared like, oh my God. What they're really saying is, and words matter, maybe they shouldn't say defund the police, but if you were to allocate, let's say, if I'm not mistaken, I remember here in Memphis, we were doing a story and they were saying like the city of Memphis police budget was like $10 million. Don't quote me on this, but it was something like that. And they were talking about allocating maybe, you know, $900,000 to certain sections of the city to, like you say, get those crime-ridden areas to do better. People are looking at that and we're like, oh my God, wait a minute, stop. But it's like if you were to invest into these communities and you tear down a lot of these abandoned buildings where people are using drugs and that kind of a thing, and you're inviting corporate businesses to come in and, hey, pay these people a livable wage. We'll give you the tax incentives. I know you pat my back, I pat your back. I get that.
Dude.
But
everyone loves a good tax write-off.
You know, if I can get a big company to build on the south side of Chicago, I'll, you know, pat your back and give you some tax benefits or whatnot. But if you're paying these people $15 to $20 an hour, now these people can pay their bills. Now they can work a 9 to 5 and be at home with their kids instead of them working 2 jobs and they don't know where their kids are. You solve a lot of your society issues by doing those types of things versus just saying, well, that's the south side, you know, those Democrat ran cities. You know what I'm saying? Wow, you see what I'm saying? If you actually proactively look into the numbers and do those kinds of things, and then also change the rhetoric. You know, you hear a lot of people talk about, black on black crime. What is black on black crime? You see what I'm saying? I'm one of those people where it's kind of like, you know, crime isn't necessarily like a color thing. You're right. If you're in Juneau, Alaska, or somewhere like that, and you got all these white men beating or native men beating their native wives, I've never heard nobody say, the native on native. You know, the native on native crime is crazy. Or out there in East Tennessee, the white on white crime is just outrageous. Be careful in Murfreesboro. Like, you know, you never really hear that, right? So it's just, you know, you change the way people talk about things, and you look at the world in a little different way, and you understand that everybody isn't playing on the same playing field, and you try to encourage that by doing different things, then perhaps the south side of Chicago can be just as prominent as the north side of Chicago. But until that,
Yeah, I mean, of course, a lot of stuff's got to change. Got to take a couple generations to do it.
Maybe so. It could start with ours.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So you covered sports.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I remember you said what, the Bulls?
The Bulls.
And then the Cowboys?
I did the Cowboys for 1 year. Dak Prescott's rookie year. I got a chance to cover him. That was a lot of fun.
Which he had a good rookie year.
He had a really great, he had a really great rookie year. That was a lot of fun. I used to just love.
Didn't they go to they went playoffs.
They went playoffs, but then I think they got.
They didn't go to NFC Championship.
I don't think they went to the
championship.
championship.
Right before.
Yeah, it was right before. Yeah, but it was beautiful getting a chance to cover them. I covered the Bulls for a few years. Then went out to DC and was doing a lot of things with the Wizards.
What years were you the Bulls?
The Bulls. Let's see, that was like 2015, 16.
Oh, so it wasn't like when Derrick Rose won MVP.
No.
It was after all that.
Yeah, it was after all of that. Yeah, so it was like when Derrick Rose were in them. They were playing against the Cleveland Cavaliers, like in the, conference. Or Eastern, I don't know if it was the Eastern Conference Finals or the semifinals, but anyway, they were playing against Cleveland, trying to make it to that next level. So I was, covering that. Then the year, Derrick Rose got traded to New York is when I started covering the Wizards a little bit more, and then I covered the Wizards for like a season or so, and did a lot of freelance here in Memphis, interviewing players that played against the Memphis Grizzlies, and beautiful sports career. Yeah, it's kind of put me where I am today.
Yeah, and didn't you cover the Panthers?
Yeah,
as well?
Carolina Panthers. Yeah, I covered them for 3 seasons. Yeah,
wow.
So that was a lot of fun.
Now, were you there their Super Bowl run year or after that?
I was after that. Yeah,
man, you're always coming in after, man.
I'm always late.
Yeah,
I'm always late, man. I need somebody to do something now so I can be there. When
you need to get in with the Chiefs now, man.
I need to, man.
Dude,
tell Patrick,
our boy Pat. Oh man,
tell Patty man. I want to be on the Chiefs.
Is he not the man or what?
He's the greatest.
He is.
I love watching him. It's just it's just like watching a kid having a blast.
It is, man. He's playing backyard ball.
Yeah. And I mean, his 2020 has been beautiful. I see him and his fiance there. I mean, why can't we be like Patrick Mahomes? His 2020, I think they're having a baby now. They just announced, he's
already fathered 31 different NFL teams.
I mean,
but now he's got his own firstborn. Now
he got his own firstborn, right? He's already signed all these other men. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Man. Okay, so what sport do you like to cover the most? Because now you're doing college football, right?
Yeah,
and you also do.
Yeah, so now I'm doing a little college football now, which is a little different. When we went to Memphis together, I was a sports editor at the Helmsman, so we got a chance to see, Anthony Miller before Anthony Miller became the Anthony Miller of the Chicago Bears.
Because he had a game winner 2 weeks ago.
Actually, when you think about it, we got a chance to cover all of those guys. Daryl Henderson, I was there for that. DeMonte Coxey, if I'm not mistaken.
Is he in the league now?
He might be. One of those guys are with the Cowboys.
Oh, Tony Pollard.
That's the guy. Sorry. That's the guy I was thinking of. Yeah, covered him, Tony Pollard. College football, I'm doing that. But if you ask, like, which sport do I like to cover the best? I like the process of covering the NFL, but I know more basketball than I do football. The process with the NFL is so smooth, like with the whole locker room setup and that kind of a thing.
Really?
Because it's like you got all 50 guys in this locker room, and you can kind of, at least when I was doing things with the Panthers and to a certain extent even with the Cowboys, you could kind of have like that one-on-one interaction with those guys. Whereas with basketball, it was so small that sometimes like the PR people would be like right there, so you really can't have like that one-on-one. But then again, it depends on the team too, because it's some, teams that I had that one-on-one with guys. But I definitely enjoy like the NFL atmosphere. It's beautiful. Like, nothing is better than being in AT&T Stadium down in Dallas. And, you got over 70-some thousand, 80-some thousand fans hollering and screaming, if not more, at AT&T Stadium. So that was always fun. And same thing in Chicago with Soldier Field. So
and what about, is it Bank of America Stadium?
Bank of America
Is
Stadium.
that a fun one to be into or no?
It was okay. I liked traveling with the Panthers. It was a lot of fun because their personality, was great. And also my favorite thing was like summer camp. I remember my first year covering summer camp with the Panthers. That's when we actually shared a cafeteria with the guys. Now, I don't think they do that anymore, even before, the pandemic and all of that. But, excuse me, we were down in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Yeah, Spartanburg, yeah.
Yeah, and it was beautiful because it was like I was there with Cam Newton and those guys. They're playing spades, and here I am eating big chicken, and it was just like so cool. It was like, wow, like that's Cam Newton over there, and it was just like I had my White Sox hoodie on. And I remember Cam saying something like, "You hot, bro?" Like because it was hot, but I always wear this hoodie. It's like it's a part of me now.
Yeah, you're wearing it now.
Yeah, which is weird. But yeah, it was just cool, just kind of having those intimate moments, with those guys being on a college down there, Woodford University, which was really cool. So, and even then, I actually stayed in one of the dorms. I was staying in one of the dorms because there was a couple of guys from basketball, from their basketball team when they went to the dance or whatever. I knew a guy. His name is Lee Skinner. He told me about some of his teammates or some of the former guys that, were on the team or whatever. And so I actually stayed in the dorms and was covering the Panthers. It was a lot of fun.
Man. Okay. So, I mean, I'll give you an opportunity to name drop here.
Okay.
Who are some of your favorite professional athletes just to talk with? Just like as people, man.
Just as people?
Just to be around, whether it's in the locker room asking questions, writing stories about them, or like hanging out in a hotel room or a dorm room talking.
CJ McCollum is probably from the Portland Trailblazers. Is probably one of the coolest people ever.
Really?
He's somebody that, again, by him having a journalism major, he kind of understands like the role of media.
So he was journalism
sports.
major?
Yeah. He went to Lehigh University and majored in journalism and stuff like that. So he kind of understood like the role of, sports reporters and that kind of thing. So CJ was like really, really cool to talk with. I enjoyed Derrick Rose a lot. I was with him during the time like in Chicago where it was kind of like weird because it was like when Jimmy Butler was becoming that all-star and Derrick Rose was kind of been ridden off a little bit in Chicago.
Did he have like 3 back-to-back seasons with knee injuries?
Yeah, he had like
it was terrible to watch.
It was kind of bad, right? And so it was a lot of fun like being around him and like engaging with his fan base. So I would definitely put Derrick Rose on that list. The early years of Dak Prescott, he probably do not, remember, but I remember he was the guy with the bow tie. And I remember asking him, like, when you going to start this bow tie brand? And I remember I bought a bow tie and I had put my bow tie on. And he was looking at me like, what are you doing? And it was like so cool because back then you had access to Dak like that. It was like he was just there in the locker room. Yeah, he was the, quarterback that spoke, to the press. But then he would come back into the Cowboys locker room. And I even covered him on the road as well, like when they beat the Packers up in Lambeau, and it was like Dak was just right there, and you could just sit there and talk with Dak. I remember reading the stat sheet one time, and he was looking at the stats, looking at what he was doing, and I would ask him a couple of questions, like, okay, so what does this mean? That kind of thing. Hey, I'm new, just trying to learn, and like those athletes like respected that, and it was a lot of fun. And the same thing with Ezekiel Elliott, like he was, really, really cool. Cam Newton, I never really got a chance to have too many like one-on-ones with Cam Newton, but I got a chance to like have a lot of one-on-ones with Shaq Thompson that play on defense out there in Carolina. And then in the NBA, John Wall by far was like, the coolest guy in the world.
Is he down to earth?
Very down to earth. Really? Like JW. I even call him JW, like we homies. I'm like, JW, you so crazy. Yeah, JW. he really great guy. And, always, anytime. And the cool thing was I was covering the Cowboys during the same time I was covering the Wizards, and John is a huge JW. He's a huge Cowboys fan. So it was, sometimes I would interview him about the Cowboys and what they need to do, getting ready for the season. It was so cool.
Where's he from originally?
He's from Carolina. He's from North Carolina. I think the Raleigh area, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's from Carolina. So, but he was, a Cowboys fan, and I just thought that was like so dope to, talk to him about the Cowboys, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Man, that's cool. That is very cool. So what do you think about sports now, the way sports have shifted? Now your job looks a little bit different right now.
Oh yes. I mean, different.
What do you think the future of sports is going to look like in terms of what you do?
Man, I sometimes worry about that. I'm not going to lie to you. If you were to ask me like, Josh, what's your dream job?
Yeah.
Not to say I don't love my job already, but my dream job, is to kind of be like this digital reporter covering sports, right? Whether that's at The Athletic or where I'm at now. And so I sometimes wonder, like with the pandemic going on and that kind of a thing, like, will we have those locker room interactions? Because I'm so accustomed to coming down to Memphis from Chicago, right? And they say if the Memphis Grizzlies were playing, the Lakers, I'm so accustomed to going into the locker room, talking with, Danny Green, another great guy in the league, talking with Danny and having conversations with him, or, hey, Kyle Kuzma, what's going on with you? I've been.
I remember you and Kuzma you were friends.
Yeah.
Are y'all? Like, y'all talk at all now?
He's doing well. Oh, can I be one of those people? He's doing well.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing in his life, but
yeah.
I miss you, Kyle. But anyway,
when was the last time you talked to him? Have you talked to him?
Last time I talked to Kyle was February in 2020. Was when they played against the Grizzlies. I want to say it was either February or January.
So it was right before everything shut down.
Before everything shut down, and he I had showed him that I was working at the CBS TV station up there in Iowa, whatever. He's like, "Oh, well, I'm so proud of you," that kind of thing. So I mean, it's all love.
Yeah. Y'all are cool.
Yeah, but you know the details. But anyway, the point that I'm making is that seeing him, hey, Coos, how you doing? That kind of thing. But I sometimes wonder now with everything that's going on, will that ever exist again? Because like right now, a lot of things that we're doing everything on Zoom. Now, don't get me wrong. I think some of the SEC schools, and I don't know, I'll probably find out Saturday, but I think the Rebels, I think like Lane Kiffin will like address the media like in that media room. And I think like the press may be socially distanced, but I don't think it's a situation where like I'm gonna be able to go in the locker room and talk to Matt Corral. Plus, I don't know if that's something the college did anyway, because this is like my first year really covering college.
Well, because isn't there a thing too when you're a certain age? I remember with Jalen Hurts, because you can't talk to the media until you're a certain age or a certain level of school as a college athlete, right? Isn't there something like that?
So it might be. So college is going to be new to me. So like I know as a reporter, according to like the rules and regulations of NCAA, like I'm not supposed to directly reach out to the players in college.
Okay.
Whereas in the NBA, NFL, the professional sports, it's not like that. So like let's say for example, John Wall isn't talking with the media tonight. Let's say I got his phone number. I could text John back then and say, "Yo, JW, can we meet off before you get to the bus? You just meet me by the vending machine, and I want to talk to you about this. If you want to keep it off the record, cool, or whatever." Yeah. And we can do that. Or I got his phone number. I could just maybe call him, right?
True.
But in college, I'm not supposed to reach out to, say, Brady White, Memphis. I'm not supposed to reach out to Brady White and say, "Yo, what's going on, Brady? I'm hearing Memphis got a lot of COVID cases. Who all got COVID?" You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I'm not supposed to do those kinds of things. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, what that future is going to look like, because right now everything is in this bubble. And as you even see with the Titans now, like, are they ever going to play again? Like, that's like what's going on.
I haven't really gotten to keep up with it. But of course, being from Nashville, got a lot of Titan fan base around me, and I don't know, because apparently players held their own private practice.
That was crazy.
And also the thing came out, like the press release from the NFL about the new like practice mandate came out after they even practiced, and now they're sitting there facing a bunch of like penalty time.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, if they did it all before the rules, again, I don't know. I don't really want to speak on it because I don't know the whole story. I haven't read all the stuff. I don't know. It's crazy.
Just weird. Yeah, it's so crazy. It's so crazy.
And I mean, I've been fighting my whole life to be having a Chiefs team.
And now you got to
bear some fruit. Yeah, and it's unreal. It's unreal watching them. Now, okay, did you watch The Last Dance?
Michael Jordan. Yeah. Oh, of course.
Okay.
I had to think about it for a second.
I know you scared me. I was like, don't tell me. Don't tell me I just lobbed this softball.
That was crazy.
Dude, okay, because Ahmad, I can't remember his last name.
Ahmad Rashad, yeah.
Yes, the NBC reporter. Do you picture yourself ever doing something like that? Hopefully,
I would love
like
to,
covering a handful of dudes, or maybe like you and JW, JW.
Yeah, I would love that, because see, honestly, that's what made me want to get into sports journalism. I always saw myself as a feature story writer. I never really
is Ahmad a feature story writer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, I mean, he was like legit, like hard news at one point,
right.
but like he was that guy that you went to. Let's say back in that time, when something went wrong in your life, you're Allen Iverson. You're the guy that sat across from Ahmad and talked about your life. That's what he was. I always kind of pictured myself kind of in that rim. Like I always wanted to be that guy where it's like, you can go to everybody else to understand Dak's stats and whether or not he's doing well or not. But I want to be that guy to tell you about Dak's life and how did he get to where he is today. Right. Same thing with Patty. I don't know Patrick Mahomes, but I'm going to call him Patty. Same thing with Patty.
I bet he doesn't like that.
I'm sure he doesn't. I'm sorry, Patty. But same thing with Patrick. Everybody else can tell you about Pat and his stats and how great he is and how he's the number one quarterback.
He's unreal. Yeah.
I want to talk to you about what it was like growing up as Patrick Mahomes. What was your life like? I don't even know like what state is he from. Is he from Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like growing up?
He's
in
from
Texas?
like White House, Texas, or something like that.
What was it like growing up in Texas? What type of adversity did you face? Was there ever a time in your career that you didn't think that you were going to make it to be that player that you are today? Right. And those are the kind of stories that I in like how we joked about Kyle Kuzma. I will say and I'm not being biased, but any story that you've ever read about Kyle Kuzma, some of the best stories, if you really go hard searching on the internet that are the ones that I wrote about him, because then you got a chance to really understand like what his life was like growing up from Flint, without a dad, on all the things that he went through.
He played at Utah?
He played at Utah, what it was like for him, at Utah, and now boom, here he is with the Lakers. Whereas everybody else know, Kuz and his cool girlfriend and all of that. Like they know the gossipy kind of, he's with LeBron, type thing. But it's like those are the kind of stories when you look at Kyle Kuzma, I want you to know like Kyle Kuzma from Flint, Kuzma, not just Kyle with the Lakers. I mean, that's his life. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I want people to know like the player. And when you think about fans, a lot of fans appreciate that because they want to see themselves in these athletes. And I can understand that.
They're not bigger than life.
Exactly.
Man, I love that shot. I mean, I love The Last Dance, man. I love that documentary series. And there's that one great shot. For a lot of reasons, it's cool when Jordan leaves his house and he's in the red Range Rover, and it's him and Ahmad, and they're driving to the United Center for a game.
Yeah.
And Jordan's just smoking a cigar, and Ahmad's sitting in the passenger seat, and they're just talking about life. And it was where, Jordan wanted to retire.
Exactly.
And they're talking through life. And it was just one of those things where it's like, man, look at how they've established this relationship as athlete and reporter.
Yeah.
But it's like, he's my new confidant. He's not just a guy that asks me questions. I mean, everyone wants to get to Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
But no one's sitting there while he smokes a cigar, which is still amazing. You're going to play a game, you're smoking a cigar.
Right.
You're in a nice Range Rover and you're smoking a cigar. But, I mean, yeah, and how cool that is, which I think we should. I mean, I think Michael Jordan did a lot of things right.
Oh, yeah.
And the way we can humanize. I mean, the stuff with his dad, and
yeah.
I mean, he was Michael Jordan.
He was Michael Jordan.
He was a normal guy.
He was just a normal guy.
He was a regular guy.
And that's what I think fans really want to kind of see themselves in with these athletes. They want to see, like, what is it like to be Derrick Rose? Like, when you talk to a lot of basketball fans that are into the stats and all of that, they may say to you, like, Derrick Rose could have been. Yeah, he was the youngest MVP, but he could have been. But if you actually talk to, like, people from Chicago and know his story, like, Derrick Rose grew up in the most terrible neighborhood in Chicago,
really?
Right? As far as crime and gangs and drug use. And
what was it called? What neighborhood?
Inglewood, which
really?
is on the south side of Chicago. And to say he went from Inglewood to a penthouse in Trump Tower, right?
He lives in Trump Tower?
He lived in Trump Tower.
Really?
Before this.
Oh, I know. Trump Tower's been around since like, I don't know, 09 or
exactly,
something.
Yeah. So, before he became the president. But that was, like, think about it. He went from the south side to downtown. And, like, that right there, is just kind of a capsule of, like, how we from Chicago see him. And so, like, I, as a feature story writer, will, like, that young boy or girl from Nashville or Knoxville or Memphis or wherever to understand that. And so that's why I try to write the stories that I write and try to have those relationships. And it's like those relationships are possible with these players, but young reporters do have to understand that you have to gain their respect, number one, and number two, you can't come there being a fanboy. You remember they have all these people around them that's saying yes to everything that they do. So I can't, and I learned that in my younger days as a reporter. I had certain favorite players. I won't tell you who. But anyway, I had certain favorite players, and oh my God, it's Danny Green. Okay, I just told you who. But and I would do that, and it's kind of like, then they don't really respect you as the. Not saying that Danny doesn't respect me. Make sure I put that out there. But I'm just saying it's like they don't really see you as like this legit reporter. If you come up there like, oh my God, I'm like your biggest fan. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like with JW, it wasn't like that. I never came to John on some, oh my God, I'm your biggest fan. It was just like, okay, I know you went to Kentucky, played with Calipari and all that.
Yeah.
But it was just
Didn't they win a national championship when he was here?
I think so. I don't know. I have to look that up. But, it was like with JW, I just looked at him like, okay, you are the, point guard, of the Washington Wizards. And we just built, camaraderie of just being, being around each other. Of course, he asked, oh, what's your name? I see you on the beat now. What's your name? I'm Joshua Vinson, from Chicago. I'm going to school in Memphis. And then it's like they just kind of respect you like, oh, wow, I like your hustle. You go to college trying to do your thing. And then it's like you get that, relationship, and then that's how you get the best stories. Is, by gaining that kind of trust where you can, like, remember when Kobe died and all those reporters started coming out, oh, Kobe texted me and said this, or Kobe said that, you know what I'm saying? Right. Remember, like, and it's just kind of like, you don't flaunt those relationships out to the world because you don't want to lose your credibility. But of course, think about it. When you're a beat writer, like before COVID and all of that, think about it. You're with this team every single day, just about. Every time they go to practice, you're at practice. Every time they are on the road, you're on the road. Every time they are in a home playing a home game, you're playing a home game. If they're going overseas to play a game in London, you're going overseas to play a game in London. You see what I'm saying?
That's wild. Yeah.
So you're going to get to know, whether it's John Wall or Cam Newton or whomever the case may be. If you're a good reporter, you're going to get to know those people on that personal level.
Okay, so since you do know these guys on a personal level, here's a topic I really want to hear your take on.
Okay.
Is the idea of politics in sports.
Okay.
And to bring another Last Dance parallel in, I remember there's a talk about when Michael Jordan didn't come out and publicly endorse the I think it was a House rep, right?
Something like that. It was like a black man that was running for something.
He was running for the
Carolina.
Democrat Party, taking down this like old white dude who's been in for a while, which I don't want to get on term limits because don't get me started on term limits. But well, I mean, his statement, that was said was the whole Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yeah.
So that's why he wasn't publicly endorsing, because he's like, hey, I'm a basketball player. Don't come to me for political stuff. I'm a basketball player, which I don't know if that was the right decision at the time. I admire it, not because, oh yeah, that was good. He didn't endorse the Democrat. I don't care about that. It's just he made a good point. Like, hey, if I'm your role model because you like how I play and what I do, that's fine. But don't come to me and looking for all your moral advice because I'm a basketball player. What do you think about politics and sports? Is that the right kind of notion for players to take, or do we need what we're having now, where it's the political stuff we're seeing?
So okay, I would say true. We know, like, let's use LeBron for example. We know LeBron James based on. I hate the fact that I say LeBron like I'm from Chicago. We know LeBron. Okay, we know LeBron James from being a basketball player, being the influential basketball player that he is. Right. But at the same time, LeBron James is a black man. And before LeBron James had these big millions of dollars and living in the nice houses that he lived in, he was just a regular black man like me. Now, the difference is I think at one point in time, people knew more LeBron than they knew me. But the point that I'm making is that, well, LeBron was a junior in high school or sophomore in high school. He grew up just a young, poor black kid from Ohio. He may have had a few more people following him because of his basketball career, but that's just who he was. So LeBron has a lot of family. Outside of his wife and his kids, he has uncles, he has aunties, he has cousins, he has second cousins, whatever. A lot of them aren't necessarily living that multi-million-dollar lifestyle that he's living. So as a black athlete, you do have a line that you're walking, because at the same time, you may not face the same struggles and strife that I may face where I'm at in life because of who you are, right? LeBron may get stopped by a police officer and somebody might be like, oh, let me get your autograph. Whereas I might get stopped by a police officer. They don't know who I am, right? You know what I'm saying? So it is different. And yes, he may have money, so he may not be facing a lot of the oppression that maybe poor black people may be facing. At the same time, he's still a black man. So when you ask the question about like politics and sports and this kind of thing, I feel like if you as the athlete, you should not be forced to do it. If you as the athlete feel like something is wrong and you have a platform where like somebody like LeBron, you get over, tens of millions of people following you on all social media platforms. Anytime
he's one of the biggest athletes in the world.
Exactly. Anytime if LeBron said right now today, I'm holding a press conference, every news media outlet in the world would fly to where he is and say, we're listening to LeBron. And it will go live on CNN, Fox News, no matter, that's just who LeBron is, right? So I say all of that to say, not to be long-winded, I say all that to say, to answer your question, I think if an athlete wants to take that role, then he or she should be able to take that role. Now, understand the consumers have a right as well to decide whether or not they want to consume that. So when you say, okay, like Jordan said, well, Republicans buy sneakers too. That's true. So if I'm a black athlete and I say Breonna Taylor or Black Lives Matter, and I'm just saying, regardless of what people think, oh, well, Black Lives Matter is really, I'm just saying, hey, I want black people to be treated equal like white people, right? That's what that saying comes from. A consumer, whether they're white, yellow, green, purple, whatever color they are, whatever, affiliation that they are politically, they have the right to either consume this media, whether it's the NBA or NFL, or not consume it.
Right.
The question then becomes those people who decide not to consume it, are you upset because this person is speaking about something that's happening to people that look like him and you prefer not to take that head on as a part of America's history because that's our history?
Right.
And you just decide to just tune it out because that makes you feel some type of way. I think that is like the question that some people have to kind of ask themselves, and they don't. They sometimes feel like, oh, well, I don't watch sports to be politics. I'm just watching sports to have a good game. That's true. That's fair. That's okay. But the people that are playing these games have family members that look like Breonna Taylor or Eric Garner or, the guy from Minnesota. I can't even think of his name right now.
George Floyd.
George Floyd. I'm so sorry.
Come on, journalist.
I know, right? I need to do better. They have family members who look like these people, and they should be able to use their platform to say, this is wrong and we should do better and we should, try to figure out what's going on here and have a calming voice in that regard. And you would think people that are American citizens would also identify with those problems versus just saying, that's not for me. But again, that's their right. So again, whether it's right or wrong, morally, that's a whole different second question. But to answer, yours directly, I feel like athletes should have that voice, but they shouldn't feel like they have to have that voice if that's not a voice that they want. If LeBron James never spoke about any social issue, now you're going to have people that's going to disagree with this. I, as a black man, don't feel like if LeBron says, you know what, I don't want to get into politics, I don't want to talk about Trump and what's going on in America, I'm just playing my game and I'm doing me. I feel like LeBron should be able to say that, and we should respect that. We can critique it, but we should be able to respect that. I'm not going to say, oh, he's Uncle Tom because he don't want to speak. You see what I'm saying? I'm like, come on now, like that's not fair.
Yeah.
Because a similar situation happened. If you remember in Cleveland, when Tamir Rice got killed, he was the 12-year-old black kid that was playing in a park with a toy gun. And somebody thought that he was much older because he was tall. And they thought this kid had this gun and was doing some mischief. The police came and just ran out and shot him. Like, they didn't even stop. Hey, excuse me, sir. What are you doing? Like, they just shot this guy and killed him, right? And he was, and it came to be, he was this 12-year-old boy. He was
with the water gun or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, and it came to be, of course, the officers didn't get charged or anything like that. And it, he was in Cleveland at the time, LeBron. And people asked him at the time about that, and he actually said, well, I don't know enough about that to talk about that. And people were like, oh, wait, what's going on here? And people didn't really like that response. To me, again, I feel like...
That's a great response, though,
I mean, you would think.
I don't remember much of the story. I have to fresh up on it, so I don't want to speak into it. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you would think people, would have respect that. But it was kind of like, how did you not know this? It's kind of like if that happened, and let's say you're this big famous player in Nashville, and it's like that happened right down the street from you, and you're like, how did you not hear about this? But I feel, I took him at his word, but it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like an athlete shouldn't have to feel like that's what the point of view that they have to take. But I have no problem with athletes voicing their opinions, nor do I have any problem with people deciding if they want to subscribe to that. At the same time, the people that decide that they don't want to subscribe to that, they do have to ask that moral question to themselves, like, well, why am I not subscribing to that? Like, I see it all the time. I work for a local TV station, and we'll post the score of a Titans game. Oh, we don't watch the NFL. NFL, they don't love our America. And it's just like, what NFL player ever said I hate America? What NFL player ever said I don't love America? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's just like, and so if you have that one-on-one conversation with them, and it's like, oh, it comes down to, oh, they talk about all that race stuff. I'm not trying to hear all that, and it's just like, I can understand that, but at the same time, it's like, that's a fact that's happening here in America, and then we as Americans, again, that's the way I see us, and I promise I'll be done. We as Americans, I see us as, we should be able to look at our past as Americans and say, yeah, if you look at America's history, and if America was a person, America, it was trifling in some things in its past, in the way it did people, in the way but it can be better, and that's okay for us to say. It's okay to look in the mirror and say, yeah, I didn't live the best life, but we can be better.
And I think move forward from where we're at.
Exactly. And I think people act as if you have that opinion of America, like, oh, you're anti-American, or go back to where you came from. And it's like, we go back to Chicago, where do I go? But that's just kind of my thought on that. And so people have to kind of ask themselves, like, okay, if LeBron James saying, hey, I want black people to be treated like white people and have those fair, chances in life, you should look deeper in the words. He's not speaking for himself specifically, obviously, because LeBron James has a better life than a lot of us, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Taco Tuesday.
Exactly, right. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you should be able to say, well, yeah, I would think any level-headed American should be able to say, yeah, you're right. Black people have had some disadvantages in this country, and maybe we as Americans can come together and figure out how to right those wrongs, instead of looking at it like, I don't want to hear about it. And that's the take a lot of people take.
Yeah. Man, I got a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
I think where to start. Okay. Quick thing.
Yeah.
What do you think of like African American versus black?
As far as the
I mean, just like
terms?
Yeah, like linguistically. I mean,
I think it's kind of...
are they interchangeable, or is it like very
It's kind of case by case. It's kind of case by case. I mean, some people prefer to be called African American. Some people prefer to be called Black American. I myself, I mean, I'm just black. I mean, I always looked at when you add that hyphen and then put another continent or country on it, that means that person kind of came from that place. Like when I think, like, again, I come from Chicago, right? When people say I'm Irish American, a lot of times they're saying like, hey, my grandmother came straight from Ireland.
Yeah.
They're not saying, well, 300-400 years ago on a slave boat. You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So like for me personally, I'm just a Black American. I mean, I was here, my mom was here, my dad was here. Everybody, several generations were here.
Right.
So Africa might be my roots, and I'm definitely, not ashamed of that or anything like that. But I'd be lying to you if I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm from the motherland. I'm from Chicagoland." Like, you see what I'm saying? So it's like I'd be lying to you if I was to act like I just, so connected in Africa. I don't even have a passport. So it's
Really?
like, so yeah.
Well, good thing can't go anywhere right now anyway.
Right.
Yeah, I was wondering because I guess it kind of hit me. I talked to a couple of Black people I work with because I guess I've always said Black.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with some Black people at a restaurant last year, and I was talking to a couple of them, and one made a point because I was like, I don't get the point of, number one, I just personally don't get the point of African American. I'm not called European American. I have never filled that out on a scholarship application, on a job application. I have never put European American. Yeah. I mean, I know a handful of European countries my family descended from, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, no, we're never called that.
Yeah.
We're not. Like, this isn't the 1890s and 1940s when we had a bunch of industrial revolution, and a lot of European immigrants came over, and you had the Polish and the Italians and the German. Like, we don't really have that as much anymore. So I just never got the point of saying you're African American, but then I'm an American, because I mean, I've only been overseas a couple of times, but when you see another American, I remember one time I was in line. We were stuck in this line in Turkey, in Istanbul, coming back to America. Actually, from Istanbul to Chicago was a flight, and it got delayed 2 hours. And we're sitting there in line, and you're about the only. There's a handful of us, but the line like snakes through.
Yeah.
And the way it cut back, I'm standing next to the people in line facing the opposite direction, and there was a Black dude standing right next to me on the other side of the rope. And it's like you can tell Americans overseas, because like Americans are pretty distinct.
Gotcha.
And everyone around you is Middle Eastern. Like, I'm talking like it's very extreme, like Islamic culture over there, where you're only seeing the eyes of the women.
Oh, okay.
And like the men all have beards. Like, I mean, it's very, very diverse, number one. But also, there's not really any Americans. There's not really any white people. But there's a Black dude standing next to me, and we looked at each other, and I could tell he was American. You could tell I'm American. And it was like we both started talking to each other. Hey, what's up, man? How are you? Blah, 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 blah. Turns out I saw him on the later flight, I think in Chicago, because he's on our flight. He had to go to Austin. Of course, I'm going to Memphis, technically. But like overseas, it's not like, oh, you're African American, I'm Caucasian. It's like, I mean, we're both American.
Yeah. And so
that's why I don't get the distinction.
So it's like, I understand, again, so like, as you mentioned, a lot of people did the distinction because, their culture was very much so celebrated, right? Like, you go to parts of Chicago and, they have a very high Polish, community. They call themselves Polish Americans, because again, they could say, well, my grandmother came over on the boat and through Ellis Island or whatever the case may be. I think a lot of Black people took, African American and took that to heart, because it was like a lot of Black people don't really have their roots. Like when you watch those commercials and people go to like 23andMe or whatever.
Ancestry.com.
Exactly. Like, what I don't, a lot of Black people, I can't speak for all Black people. A lot of Black people don't really know their lineage in that regard. So it's kind of like, whereas a lot of white people can say, oh, wow, my dad's dad, is from, Ireland, and, my mom, she came over from Sweden, and they came on a boat from Ellis Island.
Yeah. That's
if I
white,
go,
white.
Right. You know what I'm saying? If I go to 23andMe, what they gonna show? A slave ship? Like, what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not being funny. I'm just saying, like, what they gonna show. So it's one of those things where it's like a lot of Black people don't really know their identity. So I can understand why some of them, try to find their identity, and then they connect it back to Africa. So that African American means so much to them. So I definitely get it. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's case by case. So
Yeah.
with me, I'm cool. I'm just a Black American. You know, if you say, "Oh, my friend Josh, he's African American," I'm not gonna be like, "Oh, wait a minute, bro." You know, I'm not gonna do all that. But you know, somebody else you might meet, you might say, "Oh, yeah, that's my friend. She's Black American." You know, yeah, she Black, and they might, "Oh, I'm African American," and then you might be like, "Oh, I didn't mean to offend nobody." So it's, you know, it's okay to always ask. I always say, you know, if you don't know, ask. That's you know, but. So for people that may not know that's listening, that's why I think Black people took that African American so to heart, because it was like every culture that you can think of. Like I can think of the Italian Americans, the Irish Americans back in Chicago. Like they all, you know, were so proud of the country that they came from and the place that the continents and things like that. Whereas Africa, think about it, the whole thing, Africa, America. Last time I checked, Africa was a whole continent.
Dude, Africa's
you see what I'm
huge,
saying? You know,
dude,
so it's not
yeah.
so it's one of those things where it's like we're so lost as people as far as like knowing what our background is. All we can be is African American because we don't know what country. Am I from Zimbabwe? Am I from South Africa? Am I from Egypt? You know, just Africa. You know, so
right.
So it's just one of those things. Yeah.
Man. Okay, so I guess we can kind of wrap up here in a way. So let's talk about way Black people from what you're seeing, because I think you cover a lot. You being in journalism and your background, because I mean you've done like reporting, you've done breaking stories, right?
Yes, sir.
You've done different topics. Of course, you're writing a little bit about the VP debate last night. You cover sports, so you're seeing a very like diverse sample of America.
Yeah.
So why, or not why? I guess like from what you see, what you understand. Why are people so just unsettled with the state of America right now? And maybe like white people, you know, I don't know if you can talk about whatever. Talk about white privilege, you know, because right now the big topic is white privilege, systemic racism.
Well, do you have time? What time is it? Do you have time? You got a little time.
I got time.
You got a little time. Okay.
I'm just saying, because I mean, we're at 15. I don't care. We can go as long as we want. Actually,
okay.
I think we may not actually have class today. I think about it.
All right. Just let me know when
we're working on stuff.
Oh, okay.
Sorry guys, we're checking an email here.
You're good.
Just because we have we're working on a bunch of stuff, so
no worries. You're a great editor. You can always edit that part.
Yeah. I'll say sort of. Yeah, I think we're good on time. So we just talk about it. Cool. Okay, so right now there's just been a lot of
civil,
I guess, unrest. And so like the big keywords. This is kind of what I want to help you'd help, because you're always real with me.
Yeah.
And of course I'll be honest with you back. But
for sure,
if we can start defining, so people at least understand, or at least we can start like help me understand too. Like what do people mean by something like the systemic issues we're seeing now, whether it's systemic racism or like white privilege. So the stuff that you're seeing covered,
like what does that all mean? Because it's
everything
words.
Going on. Even stuff with the pandemic, because then they look at stuff like, okay, so Trump just got diagnosed positive COVID-19. I think there's a lot of variables, but he recovers that, and then people are like, oh, well, it's because he has access to a bunch of stuff because he's the president, or because he's a billionaire, or because he's white. And then, I mean, there's people that were, which he's the president.
Because he was white.
He's the president. I mean, he's just, I don't think who's in office, they're not going to just let him.
Not going to.
But there was stuff early on with COVID where they were saying, oh, like COVID-19 is racist. And you're like, wait, what?
Oh, wow.
Come on, guys. What are we talking about? And then they're talking, oh, because Black people don't have and I guess I could see the argument with that, but they were saying it was race, like it was targeting Black people only. And then I'm like, it seems like we're grasping at straws in that sense.
Right.
But if we want to talk about, because they don't have access to antibiotics or something like that.
Gotcha.
I just want you to help.
To just kind of break it all down. Okay, let's start with COVID. COVID is easier. Let's start with COVID. Okay, so first I always tell people, you know,
the Chinese virus.
Stop it. Let's start with COVID. I always tell people, always be conscientious as to where you're getting your information from, first and foremost, no matter what. Okay, so let's talk about the coronavirus. When President Trump was diagnosed with the coronavirus, and you hear people in the media, you hear people saying on social media, well, he had access to the best health care. What they're saying is that as the president of the United States, some of the best doctors in the world were overseeing him. Whatever trial, vaccines, or anything that was available, they were able to utilize that on the president of the United States, because he is, as you mentioned, the president of the United States.
Sure.
Us regular people in the United States, if you get any illness and you go to Baptist Memorial over here in Germantown somewhere, you're not going to have the same level of doctors and care and access to things that the president is going to have.
Yeah, true.
So when people say that, that's what they're talking about. The president was at a world-renowned hospital, Walter Reed. He had some of the best. He had a team of doctors. Think about it. When you go to the doctor, you have that one doctor that come out there. Hey, Isaac, let's do a physical. Okay, you gained a couple of pounds. Oh, you lost a couple of pounds. You look good. You're healthy. All right, have a blessed day. He had a team of doctors, epidemiologists, all of those people around him, monitoring him around the clock. So when people say that, that's what they mean. So,
which I get. I mean, you're the president.
Yeah, you're the president. And so nobody was surprised about that or upset about that. What they were upset about is when you have all of that access and care, and then you're cured or doing better or feeling well or whatever the case may be, and then you go in front of a camera and say, don't let COVID ruin your lives. Don't worry. Don't be afraid of COVID. You're good. I beat this virus. I'm cool. It does send off the wrong message because that average person like Isaac or that average person like myself, if I contract the virus, I'm not going to have Walter Reed level care with a team of doctors watching after me like the president did. So it's one of those things where you cannot say that to people because then people that's on the regular level, there's more regular people than there are elite people like the president. Keep in mind, it's only one president. There's millions of Isaacs and Joshuas all around the world or all around America, right? So in short, what they're saying, what people are saying is, cool, you got better or you're doing well or you got the best healthcare, cool, but don't go back to the people and tell the people, don't worry about this virus because I beat it. Obviously, of course we're happy that you beat it, but yet you had the best doctors on your side to help you beat it. So if you say that to people, and let's just say a guy named Ryan in Mississippi, he hears the president of the United States say COVID. His governor just said, don't worry about a mask. He's not going to think the virus, my president beat it, I'm fine. And then now you create a problem. So that's the issue with that. It wasn't the issue. Nobody, regular people, I don't know, like you say, it might be some extremists out there. Your average American regular people, we're hoping that the president didn't die because that would have just put the world into a little chaos because it would have been like, well, what happens next, right? I mean, so we're glad that the president didn't die. We're glad that, nothing like that didn't happen. Whether we voted for him or not, nobody is wishing death on people here, right? We're all, American people here. But you don't go in front of the American people and tell people don't worry about a virus, don't let it take over your life when you just got the best health care in the world.
I see the argument,
Okay, so that's what they mean by that. Yeah. Do you oppose to it? You want to chime in? Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, this is your hour.
Okay.
I get why he said it.
I want to hear.
Yeah, I get. I mean, I don't disagree with him saying it. I see the argument of it because, of course, people does. It's easy to say that. It's easy to say that when you win because you have all this people to assure that you will win. I guess too when I think about when you're a leader and you want to like instill some confidence in your people, because too, I mean the numbers keep changing. CDC keeps changing the numbers. WHO keeps changing the numbers. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a conservative for sure.
Yeah,
and you know that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I know that. Yeah.
But I just think a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats have a lot to gain keeping stuff divided like it is. So that's when it's crazy because stuff's happening, in the weeds. Like the numbers are changing, the models are changing, and we talked about it earlier. Like there's not the amount of intellectual honesty we need is when people. This is all new to us, and when it's wrong, I mean, I guess it's a form of weakness to admit you're wrong is what they're thinking. I don't think you or I think it is. I think it's that's honesty, and the American people want to know that, but no one's really admitting when they're wrong. And like I said, stuff is changing, so I just think there's a lot of things at play. There's a lot of people that have something to gain by keeping us divided, and I think. Like you and I, and a lot of people like us, I think out of the 30 to 50 million of us, vast majority of us have no interest in staying divided.
Right.
We can go to media bias here in a minute, but when you think about it, like, okay, who actually wants to be divided? Who has any interest in it?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think you do. I don't think I do. I don't think the people that are like me or the circle I run in, none of us have any interest in staying divided and hating each other and always being out for blood.
Right.
So then you go, okay, who is? And it's usually the elites, people in power, people that make a lot of money. And the thing is, there's people on both sides. There's elites that want power and money. So I think part of it, when I think the reason people identify with Trump, because I mean, first I'm gonna be honest. At first, I wasn't a Trump fan, especially through the primaries when he was running against all the other Republicans. I was like, this guy's a real sick guy. He's not a president. But I think the reason people start to like him is because he'll be honest with you. It's like, hey, I mean, don't let this. It has had control of your life for the last 6 months. Other countries that didn't even shut down, they have the similar numbers in cases and they're actually fine, or they did the mask from the beginning, just mask up and let's get over this thing. I think people look at that and go, okay.
But if he were to say that, right? Okay, so that's the thing. If the president of the United States were to come out and say, you know what? Yes, I had, the coronavirus, I had COVID-19. I fought this virus head on. Let's not allow this virus to run us, but it is very serious. And I have a plan coming out in my next Twitter video as to what I want us as Americans to do to combat this virus. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
But that's not what he said. What the president of the United States said was, don't let this virus run your life. We're good. Then he even tweeted about flu. So when you talk about all this misinformation and people being confused and people don't know what's going on, again, words matter, right? Just like the example I gave you before we start recording about the police, if I were to say to you, hey, you know what? We pay the Memphis Police Department $20 million a year. Let's use $500,000 of that and build a couple of community centers in some of these crime-ridden neighborhoods so they can, have a place for the kids to go. You're going to say, oh, okay. That's a small little percentage of the budget. That's not going to affect, payroll or nothing like that. I'm for that. But if I say defund the police, you're going to be, oh my God, what's going to happen to Germantown and Collierville? So it's like, so it's one of those things where words matter. If the president were to say, hey, I beat this virus, I see that this virus is a very serious thing. It's, it was times where I could barely breathe. It was and be American with us, right?
Yeah.
Where we can identify with that. I'm not gonna lie. I made peace with my maker. I pray. He's Christian, right? I talk to God. Well, he's supposed to be kind of.
Yeah. I don't think he's saved.
Right. But
Franklin Graham, I got to talk to him, and they don't think he's saved. It's a shame because he does a lot of defense for Christians, but we don't think he's actually I don't personally think he's a safe believer.
But that's my thing, right? If he would have came out there, hey, I talked to Jesus, I had these conversations, and I want us to go about this virus a little differently. I'm going to lay out a plan coming up in my next video. I'm going to get some rest tonight. America, God bless America. You would have had a different response.
Yeah.
But he didn't say that.
And there's times I do wish, he would say stuff like that. I mean, I guess too, he's himself. I can't say I'd do a better job. It's easy to say right now. We're not the man in the arena. It's so easy to be like, oh, if I were up on that balcony, here's what I would have said differently. I'd want to be honest.
Yeah.
But then you may have advisors. Who knows? I don't know. It's tough because I kind of wish in a lot of ways he would just, he would be honest. I don't think there's anything wrong. I talked about one reason I do like Tucker Carlson is he is always quick to admit when he's wrong. And of course he's biased. Tucker is biased.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. I think everyone is. Everyone has their own bias. But when you have misinformation, or you misremember something, whatever it is, just being able to correct it. Because, I do believe in the virus. I think all of us do. I mean, the virus is a real thing. The virus has claimed lives. I think it's the problem is that when it does become political is when it's something that's not even virus related, and we're using that to strong arm people into doing something or practicing this authority. And I guess the hypocrisy we're seeing is where it's oh no, you. And one thing the Illinois governor was, in hot water for a second was when he was saying that you have to stay at home and shelter in place and we have to beat this and do all this stuff. And okay, yeah, that's notable. And then some journalist goes, well, how come your wife and family took a vacation down to Florida? And he's like, don't bring my family into it. Why does the media want to, make it personal? I'm not even answering questions. I think they've raised a good point.
Okay.
Because we're saying that. And then, I don't say.
I was in that press conference. That was
really,
funny.
really.
Yeah, I remember that day.
Because there's hypocrisy on every side here.
Okay,
I think that's why the American people. I don't want to speak for myself. Yeah. I think that's why we're frustrated.
And I could jump in on that. Okay, so with J.B. Pritzker, what it was.
That's the governor.
Yeah, that's the governor, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. J.B. was basically trying to do whatever he thought was best for the state of Illinois, and he even admitted. He said, hey, I would rather 6 to 10 months down the road. Well, actually, he said 3 to 4 months because nobody thought that it was going to be going on this long.
Yeah.
He was like, I would rather by summertime, everybody condemn me and say that I overreacted versus saying that I underreacted and we lose millions of Illinoisans. And so what happened was apparently his wife, and them, they left Illinois because the pandemic was getting so crazy that they flew out privately down to Florida. And this journalist thought that he was kind of keeping score by saying, well, you're telling everybody else to stay home, but your
Right.
family is down in Florida. And so JB,
Which I think is an honest question. We
which
should
is
ask our
honest.
politicians.
yeah,
You know.
but JB was saying, but the where it was coming from was what it was. But JB was basically just kind of saying like, well, at first he didn't want to even talk about his family. Like, I'm trying to, protect Illinoisans, and you trying to make a personal attack against me playing politics, because the guy worked for a conservative paper and all of that. That's what it was.
Sure. What paper do you remember?
I don't remember the paper, but it was like downstate Illinois, a conservative radio station and paper that he worked for. And so, he was, trying to score one with the governor. But in the end of the day, JB did end up talking about it. And he, the other reporters did, talk to him about that. And so what ended up happening was, JB just came up and said, hey, yeah, I thought it was safe for my wife and kids to not be here, and be isolated basically really from the world, if you will, because they were, JB is a billionaire, I thought it would be great if my wife could be, off to the side somewhere, whatever the case may be. So it's one of those things where you're right. People are so upset because there's so much dishonesty that's going on in the world that you don't really know what to believe and what not to believe. But in the end of the day, again, with our president and, any elected official, if you come straight to the American people and you be honest about it, I think more people kind of respect you for that. But, again, he didn't really do that. And like you say, I would have loved if Trump would have got this virus and came out and said, you know what, hey, I had this virus, I saw the light, whatever, he, saying he wanted to say, hey, we're not going to let this virus, beat us as Americans, but we're going to come together. We're going to make a plan. I'm going to talk to my governors. I'm going to talk to my health officials, and we're going to, make this right. We're going to, make sure that we can do whatever we can that another 100,000 Americans don't die, or another 50. I think everybody would have said, all right, that's Trump. That's cool. We're fine with that. But he didn't. He basically told people, hey, I'm good. Don't be scared of this virus. And people are like, well, you had the best healthcare in the world, of course.
Right. Yeah, and I see it.
So that's kind of what that. But to your other, question just about the pandemic in general with the coronavirus, like you talk about like mask and that kind of a thing. Again, it became so political. In Illinois, our governor, said it best. Like, hey, the health officials are saying wear a mask. So we're going to wear a mask. If the health officials came out tomorrow and said, you know what, we found out if you wear one sock that's blue and one sock that's red, that'll prevent you from getting the coronavirus. I'm going to put the blue and red sock on. It sounds crazy and ridiculous, but I'm going to put the blue and red sock on. But what happened is that you got people questioning scientists. You got other people thinking they're scientists. You got all of this misinformation that's going on. And then the American people just grow frustrated. And so then they just take the virus as like, it's whatever. But then when their mom or their dad or somebody died from it, then that's when
it's a real thing. I think I just think there's a lot more at play. And I think thing is too, number one, I envy nobody in a leadership position. I don't care what level you are. Like if you're an employer who runs a small business, if you're a pastor, if you're a president, no matter what, you're going to make a wrong decision in somebody's eyes. So got to have a little bit of exercise some grace. But also too, man, it's just, we probably won't ever know the real truth.
Probably not.
At least while we're alive. And if we do, a lot of stuff's gonna have to change for that to happen.
That's true.
Okay. So I want to talk about we're
going to talk about black people and
white privilege,
privilege and all of that. All right, cool.
All right, here. Do you need any more water or anything like that?
I'm good so far.
Dude, how you enjoying it?
I'm loving it. I feel like I'm on talk radio.